Well, not just one pig or 3 little pigs, but roughly 10 feral hogs were digging up Mendez's yard in Irving.
Looks like close to 100 pounds.
And Mendez's home not the only place taking damage. His neighbor down the street is going to pay big bucks to fix this.
At 3 in the morning on a ranch outside San Antonio, the ground starts to move. Not the wind, not cattle, the dirt itself, heaving and rolling in the dark. When the rancher lifts his thermal scope, he sees them. Dozens of pale shapes pouring out of the mesquite, 300 pounds each, tusks down, tearing his winter wheat out by the roots. By sunrise, 10 acres are gone. It's the 3rd time this season, and for the first time in 20 years, the plan that finally slows them down will not come from a rancher, a biologist, or a government agency. It will come from a machine, asked one blunt question, that answered in under 4 minutes. This is Texas. And this is not one bad night. This is almost every night. More than 3 million feral hogs now live in this state. They have taken over 253 of Texas's 254 counties. One single county is still holding the line. Last year, they did more than $670 million in damage to crops alone, and once you add the shredded fences, the collapsed creek banks, and the ruined irrigation lines, the real number climbs past 800 million. A single family group can flatten a $100,000 crop in one weekend. But the money isn't even the scary part. The scary part is the math of how they breed. A sow drops 2 litters a year. Her piglets are breeding by 6 months old. Under the right conditions, the whole population nearly triples in 14 months. To just hold the line, not win, just hold, you have to remove 70% of them every single year. Right now, across the entire state, we manage about 29. The math isn't complicated. Texas is losing. For decades, the answer was always the same. More traps, more helicopters, more night vision hunters, more poison bait that never quite works the way the label promised. Landowners spend thousands of dollars and still watch a smarter generation of hogs show up the next spring. Aerial gunners talk about shooting the same family group 3 times in one season. Trappers find their corrals dug out overnight by animals that learn to slip under the gate. One veteran pilot described watching a whole group scatter in perfect formation the instant the helicopter's shadow touched the trees, as if they had studied the flight path themselves. The hogs weren't just surviving, they were adapting faster than the people trying to stop them. So by early 2025, a small group of scientists reached a quiet, uncomfortable conclusion. The old playbook was finished. They needed something that could see the whole battlefield at once. Every movement pattern, every seasonal shift, every human inconsistency the hogs were exploiting. So they did something that still makes some of their colleagues uneasy. They took 20 years of GPS collar data, crop damage reports, thermal drone footage, and hunter kill logs, and they fed all of it to one of the most advanced reasoning models available. They asked Grok. The question was deliberately blunt. Given everything we know about these animals, design a realistic strategy that can cut the population by at least 70% a year across the major farm zones. Ignore politics, ignore cost. Tell us what actually works. The answer came back fast. And it did not suggest a new poison. It did not propose some exotic predator. It did not reach for gene editing or any science fiction fix. What it proposed instead made several of the biologists go quiet, because it looked at their decades of hard work and, in effect, told them why all of it had been aimed at the wrong target. Here was the core of it. The hogs win because human effort is scattered and reactive. Hunters kill when it's convenient. Trappers work when the weather is nice. Helicopter crews fly when the budget allows. To a hog, that isn't a threat. It's a pattern with gaps, and they live in the gaps. So the machine's advice was simple. Stop chasing individual hogs. Start attacking the system that lets them bounce back. It laid out 3 layers. First, prediction. Feed every new signal into a living model. Trail camera hits, citizen reports, weather, crop stage, even the moon phase. Then forecast where the groups will pile up 30 to 60 days before it happens. Not a guess. A probability high enough to move your people into position before the damage starts. Second, overwhelming force. When the model lights up a zone, hit it with everything at once, inside a 72-hour window. Air, ground teams, preset traps, all together. And the goal isn't to kill every hog in Texas. It's to wipe out 70 to 80% of the breeding females in that one zone before they can scatter and start over somewhere new. Third, And this was the part nobody saw coming: permanent denial. After the strike, you flood that same ground with autonomous thermal drones that don't kill anything. They just refuse to let the survivors settle. No rest, no safe wallow, no quiet night. A hog that can't hold a home range is a stressed hog, and a stressed hog breeds less and dies sooner. You make the land itself hostile. In plain terms, the machine told them to stop treating this like hunting season and start treating it like a military campaign against an enemy that thinks. Pick your time and place. Hit hard, then never let them regroup. When word got out, the reaction was loud and mostly angry. Hunters called it science fiction. Landowners said no computer was going to tell them how to run their own property. And even inside the team, one senior biologist quietly kept a list of every reason it would fail. But a handful of them decided the only way to know was to try. In the spring of 2025, they picked a 40,000-acre stretch in the Post Oak Savannah, an area getting hammered by both crop damage and spreading hogs. They built the data pipeline. They retrained local pilots and trappers on the new timing. They leased a small fleet of long-flying thermal drones, and they waited for the model to speak. The first forecast came in June. It predicted a heavy concentration of breeding females along one creek drainage, 2 weeks after the next big rain. The team moved everyone into place. On the night it called, the helicopters lifted off, the ground crews sealed the escape routes, and the drones went quiet overhead. And at first, it looked like failure. The hogs didn't run the way they were supposed to. Instead of breaking into the open pastures where the gunners were waiting, they melted into the thickest brush and stayed there. The shooters had fewer targets than promised. The traps did okay, nothing more. By morning, the numbers were respectable, but nowhere near 70%. Online, the critics pounced. An expensive embarrassment, they called it. Funding for the next phase suddenly looked shaky. In the command trailer, one biologist sat up all night, wondering if she'd just proven the skeptics right. But while the humans were counting carcasses, the machine was still watching. The drone footage caught what the team had missed in the chaos. The hogs that survived didn't just scatter. They regrouped, fast and organized, into 2 tight clusters on the far edges of the zone, in spots the model had rated as low risk only days earlier. The animals were adapting in real time, exactly like the critics feared. The thermal images showed the surviving sows leading their piglets through dense thickets, freezing every time a drone passed. What nobody expected was that the model could adapt faster. Within 12 hours, it had redrawn the entire map. It found the new clusters, calculated the best windows to strike them, and called for a completely different toolkit. Fewer helicopters, more quiet ground teams with suppressed rifles, and heavier use of the drones to keep the animals moving until they wore themselves out. The team trusted it. They launched the follow-up 40 hours after the first. This time, the numbers changed. In one coordinated push, they took out more than 1,000 additional animals, most of them adult females. Add in the first night, and that zone had lost roughly 78% of its breeding population in under 4 days. The survivors, harassed by the drones with no rest, started abandoning the area completely. Within 3 weeks, trail cameras that used to catch dozens of hogs a night were catching almost nothing. One camera that had logged nearly 50 animals in a single week before the operation caught 2 distant shadows in the entire month after. Then came the real test. Would it rebound the way it always had? It didn't. By the end of the growing season, crop damage inside that zone was down more than 60%. Neighboring ranches that had sat it out started asking how to sign up. The state quietly expanded the program to 3 more zones in 2026, and the early data shows the same thing every time. When the pressure is synchronized and never let up, the breeding engine of the invasion finally stalls. One rancher in the second zone said that for the first time in 11 years, he pulled a full crop of peanuts without a single night of rooting damage. None of this is magic. The hogs are still out there. They still tear up fields outside the treated zones. The drones, the data, the coordinated crews all cost real money. But for the first time in decades, there is a method that actually works, that repeats, and that can push a local population below the line where it can bounce back. And the ripple effects are already showing. Deer numbers in the first zone have started to climb again. Native ground that had been crowded out for a generation is getting a little breathing room. And that heavy feeling in rural communities, the sense that the land itself is under permanent siege, is starting, slowly, to lift. The story isn't over. The hogs will keep adapting. New groups will push in from untreated counties. Funding will always be a fight, and the same machine that drew up the plan will have to keep redrawing it as the animals change. That's the nature of an enemy that learns. But something has shifted. For the first time, the people trying to protect this land aren't just reacting. They're anticipating. They're coordinating. They're using the same kind of intelligence the hogs have always used against them, only now it runs faster than the hogs do. Which leaves one question that hangs there long after the helicopters land and the drones fly home to charge. When an invasive species outsmarts us for decades, and the breakthrough finally comes from a machine that sees patterns no single human mind can hold, what does that say about who we are out here? Are we still the stewards of this land, or are we becoming something new? Partners with the tools we built to help us see. I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments. And if you want to keep following the stories where technology and the wild collide in ways nobody saw coming, subscribe and turn the bell on. Because the next chapter of this fight is already being written in the data.